me happy.
Are you thinking of buying, selling, or just finding that special place to rent? Sometimes it's easier said than done. Radio Diferente presents Los Cabos Home and Life, hosted by Dana Leuenberger, accompanied by experts in the real estate field. And so we begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dana Leuenberger, your host for Los Cabos Home and Life, and welcome back to another edition. Today we have very interesting subjects. We're going to talk about property taxes and trust, fideicomiso, because right now we're starting in the new year, and this is a time where everybody has to be starting to pay their property tax. Their trust depends on the time when they close on their deal, but a lot of people are picking up, and we're taking this subject into matter. I want to welcome today our guest, Romina Ruiz Cárdenas.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for coming. Romina is commercial notary, public number 9, corredora pública, has been in business here in Cabo for 25 years.
25 years, yes.
Correct.
Yes,
Excellent. And today we want to thank you, one of our sponsors. We have here Lamas for Hair by Carla Lamas, and this is a great product that I will be talking later and in posting. So thank you for our sponsors and our first sponsor. So we're very happy, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So Romina, how have you been?
I have been fine, thank you. Starting the new year, like you said, we're trying to get my clients up to date with their obligations and to remind them what's new for this year and what they have to be doing in order to be current in good standing and take advantages of those benefits by being early or being before time.
Okay, yes, because like I was there at the property tax at La Delegación here in Cabo San Lucas, and I was surprised. It was not that quite busy, but they seem that they're really prepared. They have that like little toldo, like that little...
They have shades for people because, yes, it's amazing how many hours you can be standing online as the time comes closer to the end of the month. So I assume that next week it will be long lines because people would like to take advantage of the 20% discount on the whole year for the taxes. So January, it's a good time to start to take advantage of that percentage because it goes down as every month advances.
So tell us, January is 20%?
January is 20%, February is 15%, March is 10%, and April it's 5%.
So they extended this year?
They extended that year. For all the years that I can remember, it was only for 3 months, and April was regular fee. Actually, you were late already on the first bimester because, you know, the predial, as the government has the system, is every 2 months. But most people, I will say 98% of the people, go ahead and pay the whole 6 bimesters. You go January, February, March, April, May, June, so like that until you end. So in your receipt, you will see 6 bimesters, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So you want to go ahead and pay the entire year so you can take advantage of that discount, which is very good.
No, yeah, and this discount is for people that are current in their payments.
Yes, actually, if you're not current, you can still pay and get benefit of the discount, but you will not get discount on the late charges. For example, in those cases, some people are able to go and speak to the treasurer, but that's in San Jose. That's the only one that can authorize this discount on their late fees. And the discount can go as high as 50% on the late charges.
Okay.
You know, but that's only depend on the tesorero. No one else can have that authority, and he signs a paper and they issue a new paper with the discount, and that's how you go and pay. But it doesn't apply, you know, it's not for sure that they will get it. You know, it's something that in the past year has been working, but remember we have a new people in charge now. We have a new party on charge, so that may be a difference.
So in San Lucas, it's by where the Red Cross is, the Delegación. And you go there?
There is another cash register, and it's right next to civil registry. It's right around there, very near, but if you don't know Cabo, it's going to be hard to get to that place. But it's where you get your marriage certificate and your birth certificate in Cabo. is right next there is an office, a small office. Most people don't know it, so it's pretty empty.
So
that's a good place to go and pay.
And that's an excellent tip because, like, I remember last year, that's the first time that I found that office. So you go, you park, and then there's extra parking in the back. It looks like if it was a basketball.
It was like a basketball court before, and now they adapted to be an office or something. But yes, it's a very small office, and most people don't know it's there. So people, it's not as crowded.
Yeah, so if you go, like if you were going to the Mega, it's on that street. There's a little roundabout, and where the patrol cars are.
That's correct. You will see the police station, well, one of the police stations there. But the main thing is like going to the Mega, then you go, like you say, you make a U-turn. And then instead of going into the same paved road, you go into the dirt road. Like it will be a big U so that you go to the next street and it's right there.
You know, that's an excellent tip. I totally forgot about that because I still have to go and pay a couple of more property taxes for clients.
Well, actually, you said it's not crowded, but today my associate Claudia she's been there since 9 o'clock and she just emailed me that she is at the cashier. So it's been 3 hours.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes, she's like, finally, after 3 hours, I'm here. And last week, we went and paid some taxes for our clients as well. And it didn't take more than an hour, But right now, she's been there for 3 hours, and apparently it's going to be a little longer. So
you never know. So the best thing is to get early, right? As early as possible. And I remember past years, like really early before 7, there was already a line being done.
Well, they did increase the hours. Usually they are not open until after lunch, but right now I think they went up to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's it's 3 o'clock. This year they didn't go up as much as 4 o'clock. But yes, if you can get there as early as 8 o'clock, people may be already, some people online, but it's good. That's a good time to go.
And it's really good to just get that done and
that's
one
correct.
worry less. And if people want to go and pay it in San Jose,
in San Jose, you have right between the Catastro office and the Public Records office. It's a 3 cashiers there. They also have a shade outside because the line can get pretty long. It's right by the fire department. So you have
that's right.
going like to Puerto Los Cabos to that bridge. Then you have that they just fixed that road, so you have the fire
exactly
department.
right next, because the fire is on the corner, and then that's where it is. So that's where you go and pay.
That's one of the cashiers, but they have 3 cashiers there, and then you have, of course, the main office, which is right in Palacio Municipal.
That's where the big plaza is.
Where the big plaza, where there is not a street anymore. It's all for walking, for pedestrians, but you can go and pay there.
So if you would like to try to get if you haven't paid and you want to get like a deduction, that's where you go. That's the office, the main office.
That's the main office, and you ask to speak with the treasurer if you want to have some discount on your late charges, and that's the only person that can authorize this discount.
Okay. Well, Romina, there's a question I get asked a lot. Like, I'm surprised sometimes how people let the years go by and they don't pay their property taxes. What can happen to their property? Can they lose their property if they don't pay the taxes?
That's a little harsh to say because it's a long process. Like any legal process in Mexico, you have the right to be heard and the right to present your evidence and to present paperwork to defend yourself. So the process is after many years, because it's not like I didn't pay 1 year or 2 years. Usually it's when people doesn't pay for like 5 years. The government will send you a notice, like an invitation. Well, it's an invitation.
That's a very nice way to put it.
An invitation to, they remind you that you have the obligation to pay your property tax, that in their records you show a bad record and you're not in good standing, and they invite you to pay. Well, that invitation comes with penalties, of course, and then they give you certain time, and if you don't listen to them or don't go and make a payment, then they will start a legal process against you.
Nobody wants to be in that situation.
No, because you will spend more money in attorney's fees than probably what the property tax amount can be, to pay it. And at that time, you can try to make a negotiation. If it's too much the money or too high or too many penalties, you can always try to say, okay, well, I can only pay it like this. And, you can make some kind of arrangements. But, of course, everything will depend on the treasurer. That's the money guy.
Okay.
The money person.
The money guy.
The money guy, the money person.
And you know what, like I encountered a situation. I was looking after some clients' property taxes, and I went to get a quote, how much they have to pay. So I would talk to them, and the person who built the home, the permits, they put like you know those cards that people over 60 get, like a discount?
Yes. The incent,
And
yes.
I go like, so I'm looking at the property taxes, and I go like, oh, this is really cheap. And then they say, well, your client has to come and he has to give their card. How would you call that in English?
I will say
For the third,
it's not third age, is like a retire maybe. Well, because maybe you can retire young, you know.
Oh,
but,
no, yes.
Well, I will say is the senior card.
The senior
card, you know,
So
something like that.
Whoever built that property got the permits on a senior card.
Okay.
So then they tell me, well, your client has to come, and it go like, a senior card? He's not that old. So he doesn't know that happened. So when people are getting their properties built and stuff, that is also one thing they need to do, because now it's going to be a headache just to go back and get all the permits and
more than the permits,
all the record.
The government, as soon as you know, when you purchase your house, the first department it goes to is the cadastro office, and the cadastro office will put the record and the information of the new owner. So as soon as they have the new name, they will not take in consideration the incent or the senior card. So your property tax is going to go back to 100%.
Okay.
You know, and the senior card, it's good for foreigners and for Mexicans. It's not something that is just for nationals, as long as you have a permanent residence. And the permanent residence, of course, is with your FM3. You know that you're here longer than 80 days. You're no longer a visitor. So you can apply, foreigners can apply for that incent or senior card. And you not only get discounts on the property tax, in some pharmacies, drugstores, you also get some kind of discount. So it's a good card to have, you know, if you're over 65 years old. Okay,
and what has to be your immigration status?
It doesn't matter if you are like retire or you're a working visa, or if you're a scientist, as long as you have an FM3 like for more than 180 days, then you can get because it can be a temporary resident. It doesn't matter as long as you have that card.
Okay, and I know we were talking today about property taxes, but would you recommend that foreign buyers, expats, would get, what legal status would it be good for them to have if they already own property here in Mexico, like a permanent resident?
Well, it depends on what their intention is while they are here in Cabo. Some people use their second home, and they are here only partially, maybe 2 or 3 months out of the year. Some people buy the house just to make business out of it, maybe to rent it, to use the Airbnb, you know, so it would depend on the people. But I mean, if you buy a house, it's because you're interested is here in Mexico, and it's at least a good thing to have a temporary resident FM3, you know, at least some kind that says, I'm not just a tourist, I'm here because I like to be here, and I want to be into the process of maybe in the future becoming a permanent resident.
And what would be the benefits for them?
Well,
like in taxation, do they get a discount?
No, it's not. It's the same. We Mexicans and foreigners pay the same tax if you're not a working FM3. If you're a working FM3, that will help you towards your capital gain tax when you sell the property. But that's not the only aspect. You know, you have to comply with other requirements to not pay capital gain tax. One of the big requirements is that you have to pay federal income tax in Mexico, which means you're making money here in Cabo or in Mexico, and you're paying your taxes. So that's one of the key issues. Of course, there are also the issue of owning the house. You're only in primary house, so if you have 4 houses in your name, so it's going to be kind of hard to say, well, this is my only home, you know. So there are certain requirements that the notary has to make sure that you comply with for a tax exemption.
Yeah, because we talked about this subject last time that you were here about property.
Immigration?
No, the gain tax.
Oh, the capital gain
tax.
Sorry. Capital gain tax.
Capital gain tax, because that's a big thing. Like we're doing all the time transactions, and we have been working together now that for our sellers to know firsthand how much they have to pay. So there's no surprises. And I really, really encourage this and recommend that people do that, because when you are in that moment that you're getting an offer and then people get nervous, or like people might be selling all the time a property, and this could be a business, but when this has been your home like for the last 10 years and suddenly for some reason you need to sell, then you don't want any surprises. You want to know all the things, right?
Yeah, and you never know, you may exempt your taxes, as long as you comply with there's a minimum, there's a limit of how much money you can exempt. Like I'd say, the most important thing is that it's your primary home and that you are a full-time resident of Mexico, Not a national, but a permanent resident of Mexico.
And also a lot of people do, and I know we're always also talking about this, do upgrades into their house. And then they hired someone and they don't ask for a factura. So how do you prove that when you say, well, yes, I paid like, let's say $290,000 for my home, but then I did $40,000 of upgrades?
That's true. Well, there is a matter, because when you purchase your home and you record that in Catastro, again, we go to Catastro, which is the property tax department, there is a record of how your house was back then, because you do a manifestación. And that manifestación indicates how many square meters, if it was 2-bedroom, 5-bedroom, how it was organized, the house. So if you can prove in the city hall that what you purchased back in 2012 is not what you're selling in 2019, because you have 4 more rooms, you have a swimming pool that it wasn't there. So it's a good thing to remanifest your property. But it's not as simple as that. You need to actually show with drawings, because if somebody assisted you with the construction, there were drawings, there was a construction permit, or it should have been, so there is paper trail that we can use for that.
But not a lot of people have that.
I've
noticed that.
Not.
So like in steps, the best procedure would be like, okay, you buy your property and then you talk like to an architect, a builder, get the blueprints, permits, and build it and manifest.
Yes.
And then if you're going to do something else, do the same process, manifest, and you have all that paper trace. Because when the notario, they do the calculation for how much the capital gains, they see the construction permits and the finalización de obra, right?
Yeah, the notario will ask you for the construction license and the notice of termination of work. That is what you say, that the oficio de terminación de obra, that it has a value there, and it has to go hand to hand with the manifestación de terminación de construcción. So it's like all this paper trail. Now, there are smaller remodelations that do not require an engineer or an architect. Let's say I want to change the tile of my bathroom. I want to change the tile of the floor. In that case, you go to Office Depot or you go to Interceramic. So make sure you ask for a factura, which now is called a CFDI because it's the electronic digital invoice. So you do not need to have an RFC or a tax ID number like it used to be in the past, because now the SAT authority, which is the fiscal authority, has a special code for foreigners or those people who do not are taxpayer but have the right to get an invoice or a factura.
They just say generic, right?
Generic. I say I want a generic RFC, and then all of the expenses for the tile, for the cement, for the painting, for whatever that is a permanent fixture into the house. Because some people ask me, well, I just change my lamps. Well, you can take the lamps when you go. Oh, my mini split. Well, you can take your mini split. So we're talking about permanent fixtures that if you detach from the property, it will damage the property. That is what is a deduction, not a carpet. I know that it can be like a permanent thing, but a carpet is not considered. It's not like the floor. The floor will involve a lot more than just taking away the carpet. So that kind of thing.
Anything that is attached with concrete?
that can be a good one. Or the painting, for example. You cannot take the painting out. You can repaint it. So all there is painting, changing the tiles, changing the floors, putting a brand new kitchen, with the whole furniture supplies. What else? The solar panels can be... I know those are detachable, but some notaries will take that. Not all of them, but some notaries will consider that, and maybe a small percentage because of the installation part. But it's not 100% deduction, so I don't recommend my clients to trust on that. But the other expenses, yes. I just changed the toilet the toilet seat. I just changed the faucets. So those little expenses, when you add them up, can be a lot.
Well, little and not that little.
Yeah, well, it depends.
Anything
it depends.
Construction is no
Yes.
cheap. My husband and I were building a house, and like I'm going through all this process, especially with the paper trays, and that's very important. And also a thing that I notice, and this is a tip, I am taking a copy of every invoice factura I get, because now the ink is just after a couple of months.
Oh yeah,
like, it disappears.
Yeah.
So you go like, oh my God, but how much are that? So it pays off to be organized.
Yes, it pays off because I say little things because maybe it's one faucet, one this, but when you add up, it's a lot of money. And it can help you. It can help you with your capital gain taxes. Anything you can use to reduce whatever amount, because it's legitimate amount of money that you spend to maintain your property. Okay. So in that idea, it's not like, I never advise my clients to avoid paying taxes, but if it's something that you did spend in the benefit of your property to maintain it, to keep it looking good, it's something that it came out of your pocket and that you should be taking in account for that.
Okay. Also, when you're selling, your receipts, like your CFE, your electric receipt, like that's out of the gate. Normally, I always tell the people, and I go with them to the CFE, and we do the
change of owner.
The change. And if they're there physically, it's so easy. We don't have to have like power of attorney or anything. It's really simple. But the other day that I posted something about the electric, somebody asked me that they thought they should not change into their name because if something happens, would be the other people responsible. And I go like, why wouldn't you want to have that receipt in your name? A really nice lady asked on behalf of a friend of hers. She just wanted him to know.
Well, one of the things is that it's one of the requirements for you to reduce your capital gain tax amount. So CFE receipt, a water receipt, and a telephone landline, not cell phones, are what the notary will ask you for. But more likely is the CFE receipt because that's a big expense, and that proves that you're actually in the home, that you're using the home. Because some people show the CFE receipt with 86 pesos, which means the house has been empty for the last 7 months, or it was whatever. So it cannot be your primary residence, because if you live there, it's going to be a lot more than 86 pesos. And we all know that. CFE is not, it's kind of expensive here. So
yes.
So it is very important to have that in your name and all the receipts, because after all, you're the legal owner. And although for that people who thinks I'm going to leave it in the past owner, so if something happens, you will not have electricity anymore in your house. So even if it's in your name or the old owner's name, if the bill is outstanding, you don't get electricity. As simple as that. So
yes, as simple. They shut it down, and that's it.
So it's not an option.
And also when it's recorded on your deed who the previous owner was, and then who the new owner is, right?
Right. So all of that is in
not
record.
Like somebody else is going to be responsible for me paying correct. Okay, so vamos a ir a un corte comercial. We're going to go on, to a break, and then we will come back with Fideicomisos Trust. Okay. Thank you.
You have questions? We have answers. Los Cabos Home and Life. Follow the live broadcast on radiodiferente.com and friend us on Facebook.
Discover the latest trends that Puerto Paraíso Entertainment Mall has for you and your family. Pamper yourself with the best brands in footwear, jewelry, clothing, swimwear, makeup, and perfumery. Enjoy the beautiful view of the marina while you dine at one of our many restaurant options and live the big premieres and discover the magic of cinema. Follow us on Facebook and find out about our events, promotions, and gifts. Plaza Puerto Paraíso, in the heart of Cabo San Lucas. Every day, all year round, Plaza Puerto Paraíso makes me happy.
Muchas gracias, Jonas. Thank you. We want to say hello to Adriana Estrada that is watching, Mary in Camp Eamson, Carlos Serrano, mi amiga Yesenia Medina, Brandon James Byron, Estela Rivera, mi amigo Rick Huss. I'm going to see him later on today. Sabrina Bacar, she's one of our sponsors, future sponsors. And Rick sends hello and congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so our second topic of today's show is trust fideicomisos. That right now, that's another thing, right?
Okay.
Although you pay it on the anniversary of where it was your closing, right?
That's correct. Yeah, the fideicomiso is paid on the date, actually not of the closing, but when you acquire the permit. But however, most of the banks have the records because sometimes you get the permit in May, but you're not closing until June for whatever reason. So yes, most bank will take in account when you make the first payment, the signature or the approval of the trust and the acceptance fees, because more banks will charge you a year in advance. Some banks charge you 2 years in advance, okay? So at that point, whenever you have a closing, you can consider that as of the first time you made the first payment, which is very near to the closing of the title.
Okay.
Okay?
And some of the questions, like very basic, we're going to start like, what is a trust?
What is a trust? Okay, that comes from the Constitution. Article 27 of our Mexican Constitution states that no foreigner can have fee simple title in the borders states of Mexico. It's called the zona fronteriza. And so if somebody will buy property, let's say in Guanajuato, Mexico City, Guadalajara, they can acquire fee simple title, but they do have to make a notice to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But it will be different if that same foreigner buying in Baja Sur, all of the top bordering states of Mexico, and right below with Guatemala. So all of those states will be frontier states. So you will need a trust because it's a constitutional decree or order. And mainly, I think it was to protect, back then when it was created in 1917, it was to protect those states from having people getting here and for the war. It was more like a protection of making sure that no foreigners will own that piece of land so that we can have control of that. And it just stayed like that for all this time. And yes, there was a time where there was a bill in Congress that they will try to eliminate the fideicomiso. But after some months of discussion, that was agreed that it was not voted, so it did not pass.
Yes, that was one of our questions. We have a realtor chat, and I asked them if they would have any type of question. And so Judy McLean from Cabo for Sale, hi Judy, she wrote, I just heard that there's a bill in Congress now that to have fee simple titles for expats if it's their primary residence. So you just answered the question.
Yes, I'm not aware. I'm not saying that there is not, but I'm not aware right now that there is a new bill. I know there was one, I would say 2 or 3 years ago, and it was a big fuss, and it was in all the media, and everybody was talking about it, and it was like big hopes. But like I'd say, it did not pass. It did not pass, so stays the same. Because it will imply to amend the Constitution to have that change.
And that's a big thing.
Well, more than a big thing, just can think about all the banks, all the money they will not be getting for doing pretty much nothing. Because if you think, and I'm sorry to say that, but if you think what service the banks provide, that you will pay the annual trust fee, they don't provide you any service.
Okay, yeah, excellent thing. Because right now, yesterday, in fact, I was in a bank getting the quote for clients of mine of their fideicomiso, and it was a little bit frustrating, although the girl was amazing and she was doing, but I go like, that should go, like, why should people be paying that extra? It doesn't make any sense to me. And when I have clients in front that I go through the A through C of purchasing a property in Cabo, and they go the fideicomiso, and there's a lot of concern. Like people go like, do I own the property?
Yes, that's one of the things, because you don't actually, with that fideicomiso, you have three parties, which is the trust officer, that is called a fiduciary or the fiduciario, who has to be a bank, a Mexican bank, and that is the owner of the real estate, of the actual property. Then you have the fideicomitente, who is the seller or the settlor, and who is the one transferring title to the bank. And then you have the fideicomisario, who is the actual buyer or the beneficiary of the beneficial trust rights. But that owner is not the owner of the property per se. It's the owner of the use and enjoyment of the property. Now, this does not mean that the bank is going to go to your house and make changes and have a say on what color you should paint or how you should do with your home. It just means that legally, he's the owner of record. But you have the benefit of enjoying your house, doing everything you want, lease it, rent it, whatever you want to do with your home, but you do not own the land. And that is for constitutional, like I'd say, it's only on the frontier zones, and it will not happen in mainland Mexico. It's just on the bordering states of Mexico.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, because some people go like, oh my God, should I go forward with this? It's kind of like a little bit.
Yeah, I can see why, because they say, well, I'm paying all this money and it's not mine,
And it's very interesting because we said during the closings, we said and read the whole deed. So in the deed also, you have the beneficiaries who's going to, like, let's say a couple buys a property, but then they have children. So everything is recorded there, and also acts like a will.
It acts like a will, yes. Actually, we always advise our clients to list their beneficiaries in case of death. And not because we're wishing them that would happen, and maybe they don't like to talk about it, but that will save probate. Because if you don't appoint your beneficiaries in case of death, when you set up your trust, in the future, it's like they will have to go to probate in their own states or even in Mexico. And so it's a lot of money, so there are debt transfer taxes, so it's a lot more complicated than if they are listed as beneficiaries in case of death, and it's a very simple process. When the main beneficiaries are no longer alive, it's very easy to have them acknowledged as the primary beneficiaries, and now they can appoint their beneficiaries in case of death. So it's like a will, that it just goes for 50 years because the trust is good for 50 years.
And then after 50 years,
you can renew it. You're advised to renew it 180 days before. And not wait till the last minute. Okay, it's always advised to like at least 6 months before start working on the renewal. It's not like they are going to deny it because there is no reason for that, but it's just to make sure that your trust is always alive, that is not in the limbo.
You don't want that. No. When you're talking about money, investment, and how you start, you want to start solid and with all the fundamentals. So when people ask me, Romina, is like, why should I pay closing costs? Why should I pay a closing agent? Because of this. It is pretty simple to buy a property if you are with the right people that know what they're doing. So you can have a smooth process.
Transaction. Yes.
Transaction. And it's good for people to have like the file and with their original deed and know exactly, like put a reminder when it's due and all that. Also when we are putting property up for sale, then I sit down with sellers and they tell me like I've owned this property for, let's say 6 years and I've never paid my trust. So this becomes
an issue. Yeah, one of the payments that we always remind our clients, when we do a closing, it takes about 40 to 50 hours of our time just to make sure that everything is in order. And sometimes the client does not see that time because you see the end product, that they went to the notary, signed, no problem of us, and they have no idea of all the things that we have to coordinate to make sure that happened on time, that the trust permit was filed correctly, that the title was reviewed, that there is no liens, all of the little aspects. But finally, when we deliver the title to our client, we prepare that in a very nice binder where we remind them of what their obligations are. And these obligations are needed to be in good standing because when they sell, it will be easier. For example, HOA dues. Some people say, well, I don't want to pay the HOA dues. I just go on forever. It will take the manager to take me here a lawsuit, blah, blah, blah. But by law, you cannot transfer title if you're not in good standing with the HOA. And that's one of the requirements now with the state condominium law and with the notary law. It's an obligation to be in good standing with the homeowner's dues. So that's one. The other one is the trust fees. That's every year. And they do have penalties if you don't pay on time. And some people expect them bank to remind them. But it's not the bank's obligation to remind you that your trust is due. It's your obligation to remember that you owe the trust. So that's one of the obligations, because the no trust officer will authorize any transfer if you're not in good standing with the trust. Then you have the property taxes. Why? Because we need a certificate of non-indebtedness both for the notary and for the appraisal, which are requirements by law for the notary to have. So at least those obligations, property taxes, HOA, a homeowner's dues, is something that you're going to have every year. And not mentioning the utilities, which in some cases are monthly, like the water, the telephone, and the CFE, which is the electric company, that's every 2 months. But still, if you're not in good standing with them, because now notaries are asking for the water from the water letter, from the UMSAPA's department.
Yes, you have
that's
to
a new
provide
one too.
that.
So we have to provide that. So at the end, no matter how much you want to postpone those payments, when you sell, you're going to be forced to pay them. And with penalties and late charges and interest, and you keep adding, so why to postpone something that you have to do?
And it just puts more stress on the closer, on the agent, on the seller. So just to have like a complete file. And for us agents, that's the best thing to do. And like I had a closing with a client, and everything was fine, just the HOA. And we said, okay, in the process. And everything was said, everything was paid. But then from the HOA company, the HOA office, from the developer, they went on vacation.
Oh, boy.
So then the trust, because it was a foreigner purchasing the property, if the trustee bank didn't have that exact paper, so the payment was a little bit delayed. So a favor that became a favor, then the client went like, well, where's my money?
Right.
So now it's like,
so
if
all
it's
those
not
things,
everything's in the file.
Yeah, and some HOA offices are very understanding, and they accept from the proceeds of escrow to come before they issue the letters. But some of them say, I'm sorry, I don't give you the letter if you don't pay me. So I'm not going to trust that you're going to release funds to me when you close, no matter if you showed them the disbursement instruction, that is their name, their bank information, signed by seller, signed by buyer, say no money, no letter.
They don't budge.
So why to go to that extent, of maybe putting a closing in jeopardy just because the client didn't pay his or her obligations.
Yeah, and I'm glad they don't budge, because they're doing things like
because it's a problem for your new client, for the new owner that is supposed to have a peace of mind and to go into their new home at peace, and having to trouble. There is this debt and there is some other thing. So it's why to do that to the new person? It's not fair.
Yeah. And going back to the fideicomiso, that's a long word, or the trust. Like Scotiabank, they have their offices here in San Jose, but then I have to pay another fideicomiso for clients, and their office is not here in Cabo anymore.
Okay.
So the back and forth with the emails, and now for them to answer the phone, it's becoming like a little bit of a hassle.
Yeah, Scotiabank used to be one of the best banks to work
with. Oh, no,
with.
Scotiabank is here.
Yeah, Scotiabank is here, but there are some offices, some banks that are not here locally. And yes, that can sometimes delay a closing in a serious way because of lack of communication from them, So that can be an issue.
Okay, we have here David Miller. He asks, could you go into more detail on remanifestation process?
Okay.
Okay, David, like what more would you like for us to...
Okay, I'm gonna go again with the process. When you do a remodeling in your house or do an improvement, you will need to have your set of drawings or blueprints indicating what is that in which consists, because we need to remanifest how many square meters. Here in Mexico, we go by a square meter, not foot. So we need to know for sure what was the increase, what was the modification. If it was a swimming pool, we need to take pictures of that, so that all of those, the construction license, if there was one, all the facturas that you spent on buying the supplies in case you did not have a constructor, pictures of the before and after, or actual the finalized work, And then we take that to Catastro and we tell them, we make an ampliación de obra, or we made a remodelación, because it depends, we need to know if it's a remodeling work, or if it was an extension of something existing already, that it wasn't ended when they purchased it, because sometimes the house is not completed, so you make an ampliación. And then to Catastro, you prove exactly what is the addition or what is the difference, and then you remanifest your property, and that will have a value. And of course, you have to pay a fee because you did not do it when it was supposed to be done. And when it's supposed to be done, when you're actually in the process. When you're in the process, you're supposed to ask for the permit, get the permit, and then notify the government that it's concluded. So that's the time with no penalties. But if you go a year after, 6 months after, and try to do this, it's going to be a small penalty for doing that.
Okay, David, he has a question. Do I do this through a notary or one of the city offices?
It's directly in the Catastro. The notary has nothing to do with this, because it's not a transfer of title. It's nothing a notary can do. You can get yourself assisted by an engineer, by a gestor, by an attorney, or yourself. Just go into Catastro and say, this is my property code number. In the Catastro office, they will go into the records. And then you can say if you're fluent in Spanish, because they will not speak English. In the Catastro office, yes. I don't know if anyone will speak English. I mean, I seriously don't know. Mm-hmm. But if this person is fluent in Spanish enough to make himself understood of what he wants, in Catastro, they will tell him step by step what has to be done.
Or in the best case, like you could give asesoría, advice. And so I'm gonna write him. Your office number is?
It's 143-4838 and 143-5343.
Okay.
143. 48.
38. Okay, David, so that is Romina's office number. You can contact her, make an appointment, because maybe everything is personalized, right? Mm-hmm. And so you would be in very good hands with the professional.
In all my experience, no case is the same as the other one. So every case is different. It has to be treated individually. So it's very hard for me to give a general advice. I mean, I can give general advice, but for his specific concerns, there could be something different that I need to be informed,
Okay, excellent. David says, gracias.
De nada.
Okay, vamos a ir a un corte. We're just going to cut for a break, and we'll be right back with the fideicomisos. Thank you.
You have questions? We have answers. Los Cabos Home and Life. Follow the live broadcast on radiodiferente.com and friend us on Facebook.
Discover the latest trends that Puerto Paraíso Entertainment Mall has for you and your family. Pamper yourself with the best brands in footwear, jewelry, clothing, swimwear, makeup, and perfumery. Enjoy the beautiful view of the marina while you dine at one of our many restaurant options and live the big premieres and discover the magic of cinema. Follow us on Facebook and find out about our events, promotions, and gifts. Plaza Puerto Paraíso, in the heart of Cabo San Lucas. Every day, all year round, Plaza Puerto Paraíso makes me happy.
Okay, we're back. I want to say hi to Connie Becererdi. Hi, I love Connie. One of the best agents that I know here. I love to show her properties. She's such a lady. And Dane Posey, another great, awesome agent here in Cabo. Okay, so we were talking about fideicomisos. So it has been a pain when the offices they're not here in Cabo anymore. You don't have a place to go and just contact directly, like HSBC that they left.
Oh boy.
Okay, what did I get myself into?
Well, what can I say? It's hard. It's very hard to. I don't want to talk bad about anyone in particular.
Of course, and this is not.
But yes, personally, I don't do any closings with HSBC. In the office, we don't accept closings, and I'm sorry, because this is what I do for a living, and I really enjoy my work, and I love to do closings, and it's very sad for me when I see a title that is from HSBC and that I'm asked to do a quote. I just have to let it go, and not because I'm not able to. I could do it, but it will take me a year and a half. a process that regularly takes me 45 days. So the client may not understand that it's not up to me, but it's the, unfortunately, lack of communication, not on my part, because I can send 20 emails a day and they don't get responded, and there is no phone call, and sometimes you're asked to go to or talk to Tijuana, but sometimes it's in Guadalajara, and other time can be Mexico City. So with dealing with HSBC, and I closed with HSBC over 120 properties when they were here. You know, I was responsible of Marina Sol building. Back then I worked for them, and I did 120 closings in Marina Sol. And
There you go.
Yeah, and it was HSBC. So it was very easy to work with them while they were here. When we have somebody to go and meet with, where you can knock on the door and say, what's going on with my project? But right now, when you're asked to go to 3 different cities, Tijuana, Mexico City, and Guadalajara, and even though you're there, you may not get a response. It increases the fees for your closing because you will not charge the same when you have to travel. And if you don't know if you will be heard in 1 day or 2 or 3, it's hard. So I decided personally not to take those closings because my clients will not be happy with the process. And I want my clients to feel that it was a very easy and smooth transaction for them. They were able to close on time. And it's not because it's easy for me, because I don't say there is an easy closing. You know, all the closings are very specific. They can be easy for the client because we make sure that they had an easy transaction. But for us involved, sometimes are nightmares, you know, because you face so many situations, probates, people who dies in the middle, a property not being recorded, the title is not a good title, there is a subdivision, there is agrarian law that you didn't take in consideration. So there is not an easy closing, but we try to make it easy for the client.
Yeah, and I have had a lot of questions. Like people say, like, well, it's Mexico, and like anything goes. Not in the legal. We do have a legal process in everything, right? Mm-hmm. If there's power of attorney or anything, and everything's recorded. Like if you're buying something legally. Right.
Yeah, it is the job of the closing agent to make sure that everything that is going on is legit. Because unfortunately to say, I just had in one of the closings about to sign the papers, we realized that the power of attorney from a notary here in Cabo was fake. And it is very hard to determine because it had the seal, it had the signature, it has the small holograms, it had everything. So it was very hard to see that there was not a real power of attorney. Wow. And it was a fake power of attorney.
It's the first time that I've heard that.
Yeah, me too. That was my first one in 25 years.
Oh my goodness.
So now in my office, whenever we receive a power of attorney from a local notary or from a Mexican notary, we mail the notary, we scan the power of attorney and say, hey, we were presented with this power of attorney. Is this your power of attorney? Is it in your records? Did you sign this? And once they say yes, that the deed title matches the information, the grantor, the attorney, in fact, everything is as it is in my records, then we proceed. Otherwise, because it happened to us, and, you know, lucky enough, we were able to determine that it was a fake power of attorney before transferring title. Otherwise, you know, it could have been a very bad situation.
That it would pop up once
the actual owner who did not give power of attorney will go to their home and say, what happened? I never sold that. You know, so that's when we said, what? Here's your power of attorney. I never signed that power of attorney. It was in my signature. So that kind of thing. So it's hard.
So
it's hard.
One of the they're taking our picture. So one of the ideas when I came up with this the radio show is that I went through all the training for the federal real estate license, and that really opened up my eyes for a lot of things, because we take information for granted, and then when we're having a sale and another closing, like, you learn a lot of things. But I've noticed that every single sale has little different things.
That's correct.
So this is what the thing for me, education is very important, and being close to people like you that are so professional and know their things, know their craft, right? So people have to be very careful when and approach the professionals.
Yes, like you say, some people may think that paying a closing agent is an unnecessary expense, but not because that's what I do, but I do believe that we are a big part of a transaction, because we are the one that are the first eyes. You know, that we receive at first hands, we have the experience, we know what to look for. Like I'd say, those specific details, the signatures are not the same as the passport. Oh, it's a different, no, this is not signed by the original person who was supposed to sign. So in my experience, I have had to return letter of transfers, power of attorney, disbursement instruction, because the signatures were not by the person who was supposed to make them. You know, and it may be something that people may think, oh, that's so simple.
No, it's
but
not
to me,
simple.
it's not simple. You know, the validity of a passport, you know, oh, it's expired. And I know, and I fuss with that because I say, well, the person is a person, whether the passport is expired or not. But in Mexico, that makes a difference. In Mexico, it's not a valid ID, you know, even though it's the same person, it's the passport, it's the picture, it's the signature, but it's not current. And that kind of things that make a difference in a transaction.
Because people think like, what you do, you're a closing agent, closing lawyer. Oh, it's so simple. You just take this document to this office and this and that. But you have to be looking at all those things. As for us, a realtor, that people think, well, you just put the sign in and get the offer and you make this huge commission. No, it's not like that. Like when you're asking, you made a very good comment about the passport. They just take a picture and send it to you. No, it has to be scanned. Mm-hmm. So there's all those little details. So we become like directors and we're talking to 100 different people about 100 different things. And we need to coordinate that everything flows and everything goes
That's
good.
correct. That's correct.
And if a situation comes, we have to deal with that person and that person and that person.
Yeah.
And I read a quote that really, really helped me. It said, how to get comfortable in uncomfortable situations.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes.
Because I would just like get so upset. I go like, why is this not happening? Or like the FMT, the visas, they were expired and okay, it was expired, but this happened. So now you have to go and get a new one. It's just little details, right?
Details.
But the devil is in the details.
Yeah, that add up. You know, I think we are into details and I'm a very detailed person and maybe too detailed. You know, but I look I look at the small print. I look at signatures, I look at expiration days, I looked against the light to see if this is an original or it's a copy, you know, that kind of things, you know, that it's given by experience. It's not because I am too smart, it's because I have
smart.
I have a lot of experience on doing that, and I have seen so many different scenarios that I always say there is nothing can surprise me, and then as soon as I say that, the next closing I go like, wow, I didn't see that coming, you know, so that kind of things, like somebody dying 2 days before closing. So you have to deal with that and try to do the closing as fast as possible, despite of the person being dead, you know, before time. So.
Oh, yeah, that happened to us. To my husband and I, we purchased a property and the person had passed away.
Yes.
And the closing took almost a year.
Yeah.
Almost a year, and I became like the errand girl for the lawyer. I would say like, just give me the papers and I'll go.
Right.
But the thing is that I learned so much, and this is why I love getting so involved in the closings, although I don't do them, because this is knowledge. So when I'm in front of the next buyer, I can give them the confidence, and you kind of like, I say it's our toolbox for our realtors, right? You go like this and that, and it's just makes life a lot better.
Yeah, one of the important things that some people do not know, I don't want to say most people, some people do not know is a power of attorney. They think that if they give a power of attorney, they don't have to worry about it. But powers of attorney are good while the grantor is alive. As soon as the grantor is dead, that power of attorney is worth zero. And some people can think, well, I still have power of attorney from my passed away dad or mom. I say, well, sorry, that's not valid anymore, you know, and that's another situation too, that people give power of attorney and things that it's for granted, you know, that they can use it at any time, in any moment. You know, there are revocable powers of attorney and or durable powers of attorney. So we have to look at all those details that are part of a closing of the legal process, and it's our obligation to make sure that everything is in order.
Yeah, but in the deed, if from children and parents, like if they're in the deed, if a parent passes away, that unfortunately, the property goes into the...
Yes, it goes. And we have had closings where in the same title, we have to acknowledge the beneficiaries in case of death as part one and as part two. Once they are acknowledged as the primary holders, then they assign the beneficial trust rights. So that has happened to us too. You know, that the offer was signed by the parents, but while the closing took place, there was an accident and the parents passed away. So now we have the beneficiaries, and then they have to convince that they still want to sell, you know, because maybe it was their parents' wish to sell the property, but it wasn't their wish to sell the property. So those issues also come up in some closings.
So if you own a property, the best thing is to go with a lawyer, go through your whole scenario. This is my family. This would be my children. If my husband and I are not longer here, this is our wishes.
Right.
So everything's ready. So if the children want to sell the property, they won't have to go through anything.
Through any hassle. No, like I said, there is not debt transfer fees like it would be in probate. There is not all the legal stages of a probate, whether here in Mexico or in the foreign country. So it is the best always to list your beneficiaries in case of death, no matter how many they are, because people, it's because I want to put like, if he predeceases me, then I appoint Susie and Tom. It's okay. And then you can state what happens if Susie and Tom predeceases you and you. So it doesn't matter. You know, I don't mind that it's a long list of beneficiaries as long as the client is what he wants, because sometimes they have this estate back at home like that. You know, they have their family trust, and yes, it is possible to set it up in the same way, just changing the wording of how their estate is in United States or in Canada or any other country.
Okay, excellent. And we're coming almost to the end of our show. It has been so interesting, so full of knowledge. So this is the question. If somebody hasn't paid their trust and they're backed up, can they lose their property to the bank? And if the office is no longer here, what do they do?
Okay, well, the trust itself will set up the basis, and it will say what happens, because the patrimony of the trust, in plain words, is the property itself guarantees payment of the trust. So yes, legally, they could take the property, but it's a process, a legal process of, hey, I am notifying you that you are so delinquent for so many months or so many years. Well, actually, years will be. So therefore, I'm going to start my execution program.
How many years would that be? It depends on the bank?
Yes, in my experience, I haven't seen any foreclosure in a bank, because the trust institution business is not getting property from clients. It's getting trust fees. So really, if they would get the property, they will have to go to auction, and they have to go to this legal process. They will have to spend attorney's fees. So it is always the intention to, again, invite people to pay their dues. You know, they will notify you. It's not like, oh, you owe 20 years of annual fees, and I'm taking your property. No, they will notify you, and you have the right to defend yourself. Okay. Of course, it will imply attorney's fees on your side. The bank will charge their own attorney's fees, and at the end, you can settle. So I haven't seen, in 25 years of experience, I have never ever heard of a bank taking over a property.
Oh, that's
now
good to
I'm
know.
not
Yes.
encouraging people not to pay.
Of course
not.
not.
The title is very clear and says that the property itself guarantees at any time the fees of the fiduciary, and so he's in control, because at the end he's the owner of the land. He's the owner of record, to say
of record.
So it is. I will never encourage someone used to not pay, and you see what happens. You know, I will always ask my clients to pay their obligations.
Okay, and if the office is no longer here?
Okay, the office is no longer here. You have email addresses that you can contact. Sometimes banks are acquired by other banks, like Banco del Atlántico.
Oh, I remember,
Then
yes.
it was back then when I started with Marinasol in 1995, it was Banco del Atlántico. Then it became Interacciones Banco del Atlántico. Then it became
Serfín?
Vital.
There was Serfín, no?
No, then it became Vital, and then it became HSBC. And so even though like Banco Unión, then Banca Cremi, then it was BBA Bancomer, so there is always a trail. So sometimes small banks are purchased by bigger banks, but the property will follow that. It is not like, oh, my bank is no longer here, what I'm going to do, I am losing my property. No. Okay. No, the bank will always be either acquired by another bank or merged. So at any time, you can always follow the process and make the payment.
Okay. So just see on the deed who is the trustee bank, and just kind of like go to that bank, and they'll let you know where to go, who to contact, so you can do that.
Yes, and most banks right now take credit cards. You know, if you register with them, they will take credit cards for you to like have an automatic charge. They also take wire transfer, checks, deposits. So it's very easy nowadays to make. You know, we offer in our office the service for our clients to pay their property taxes and to pay their annual trust fee. And that service includes sending an email to remind them, hey, by the way, it's time for your trust payment. Would you like for us to make the payment?
Oh, that's very comfortable.
So
that's
how much?
Something.
We charge $80.
$80, and you look after everything.
And we look after everything.
Okay, I'm going to send you a couple of clients
today.
Yes.
So we charge $80 for paying the property tax and $80 to pay the annual trust fee.
Perfect.
Okay? All right.
Perfect. Romina, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
And best of luck for this year. I know that you have a bunch of projects, and if we want to have you back again on the show,
I would love
soon.
to be back here, and it's always great to talk to you and your audience.
Claro que sí. Okay, guys, thank you so much. I'm Dana Lurenberger for Los Cabos Home and Life. Gracias a Jonás. We came live from Radio Diferente in Cabo San Lucas, and we'll see you next week. Oh, by the way, we'll be opening Spanish Hour, real estate radio show in Spanish on Thursday, so keep posted for that. Bye-bye.
Los Cabos Home and Life. Lifestyle tips on recreational events and professional advice on buying, selling, and renting real estate in beautiful Los Cabos.